Republican Party. My name is Brandon Taylor, and I am the chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party. And across the table from me is my good friend, Mr. Lawrence Sutton. He is the secretary of the Lawrence County Republican Party. And in studio, we have a friend of ours and a special guest, Mr. Brent Cooper, who is a district attorney for the 22nd Judicial District.
That's right.
Welcome, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Always fun to get on here and talk a little politics. And then now we've got the district attorney on here, so I feel like I need to be on my best behavior for some reason. I don't know. I might be in the principal's office
it may be from past incidents, but they won't be held against you.
Well, good. Thank you for that. I appreciate that reassurance.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about you. I know last time, Brent was in here, you just magically didn't come that day.
I know it.
I was quote unquote, I have a bad car. I got something going on with my car.
Yep.
I don't know. I think he was a little bit scared, Brent.
Those consciences will make your car tear down.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, see there's a big misconception about how you need to act around the district attorney because
Let me get an ink pen.
The misconception is that I'm always looking for crime, and the problem with that is if I witness a crime, that makes me a witness.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to do is see somebody commit a crime because then I can't prosecute them.
Well, okay. Hey, listen.
So like Elf on a Shelf, we need to have DA on the shelf.
I'm thinking about hanging out with you a little more.
Yeah, a little inside tip there. Now, that doesn't mean I can't get someone to prosecute.
I understand. Well, we're glad you're here, Brent, and it's always fun to get you guys in studio, and I'm glad you're able to make it back. Last time you were down here, I wasn't able to be in studio with you, and I regrettably would rather been here than be on the side of the road with a vehicle that was broke down in traffic. But give us a quick update on what's going on in Brent Cooper's world.
It's the work is steady. I'll say that in what I do. Of course, my district covers Murray, Wayne, Lawrence, and Giles counties. So what I do, what my office does, is we prosecute all of the state crimes that are committed in those 4 counties.
Okay.
So you can imagine, what that entails. Everything from shoplifting to first-degree murder to rape of a child.
Sure.
So, everything that happens in those 4 counties, we handle.
Wait, are you saying that we actually prosecute shoplifting here? And I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
I understand.
Maybe that's why we don't have a lot of shoplifting in these counties like they do in some of the blue cities.
It definitely helps.
Oh, absolutely. We're not going to. In fact, one of the first jobs I had right out of college was loss prevention, where I caught shoplifters for a living.
Really?
So shoplifters are near and dear to my heart. When I was a lot younger, a lot lighter, and a lot better shape, I actually fought with a few in parking lots outside department stores.
You have any video footage of that?
I would love to see that.
See a little bit of that
Thankfully,
footage.
that predates cell phones, so you're not going to find any video of that. But of course, I won every battle I entered into.
I see you have some WWE action.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But no, I'm adamantly against shoplifting.
Good.
I don't like theft of any kind.
I don't either.
I'm old-fashioned. I think, my grandpa always said there's nothing worse than a thief.
That's right.
I agree with that.
There's a reason why, if you testify in court, if you had a drug charge in your criminal history, I couldn't use that drug charge to attack your credibility, because that's not a crime that that involves moral turpitude or in other words, truthfulness. But if you have a shoplifting conviction on your record, I can bring that out and use it to attack your credibility, because shoplifting, any kind of theft, is a crime of moral turpitude. That under the law, you can use that as an indicator of whether or not somebody's being truthful.
Wow, I did not know that, but it makes perfect sense. That's the rationale I would use. Well, let me ask you a question. I don't know if you can talk about it in depth, but what would be like the most common, or what do you prosecute the most in out of these 4 counties? What crime is the one you see the most?
Probably drugs.
I'd say, drug possession is probably number 1.
Okay.
starting with simple possession of various, drugs. And simple possession means that person has a small amount of drugs on them, and it's for their personal use.
Okay. Yes.
So those are probably the number one category, followed up closely by felony drug possession, and then domestic violence, assaults, things like that.
Okay.
And all of those, almost every other crime that you prosecute that's not a drug crime is the vast majority of them are related to drugs somehow, or drugs play a factor in it.
Yes.
One way or another. If you have an aggravated robbery, there's a good chance the person that held up the convenience store is a drug addict and did it to get money for drugs. If you have a domestic assault, there's a good chance that the abuser was using drugs or alcohol at the time of the assault.
Wow.
You can almost, like I said, I couldn't give you an exact percentage, but the vast majority of the crimes we deal with involve drugs. And shoplifting, that's a big one.
That'd be another one as well.
That's another one. Professional shoplifters, they know. I've sat down and talked with shoplifters, and they would actually go take orders from people in the neighborhood, what they wanted them to steal for them.
Wow.
And if you wanted a $100 pair of Nikes, you give them your size, they'd go steal them for you and sell them to you for 50 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
So, also,
those people should be
taking orders.
Yeah. The same way with food. We had people that would steal steaks. And imagine, and this is before steaks were as nearly as expensive as they are now. But would actually steal steaks and go shop them to restaurants in the same town.
Wow.
And the manager would meet them out back, and
that was local here in the four counties you're coming. Wow. See, I guess I just don't think like a criminal, and I have to rewire my brain when I'm trying to think like, I don't know. People work harder, and I've always heard this my granddad would say, people work harder to get out of work than they would to just go get a job.
Yeah.
You make more money in less time if you just went and got a job. But
you think about these people stealing catalytic converters. First of all, they've got to plan the theft. They've got to find they look for specific vehicles that have the bigger converters on them.
Right.
They look for vehicles that are going to be in accessible locations, preferably where there are no cameras, in the dark. They do a lot of legwork, scoping out, the vehicles they're going to steal them off of. Then you got to have your saws all charged up.
Yeah.
And then you've either got to be small enough to get under those vehicles, or we've had cases where they actually use equipment to lift the vehicles with, and jacks to jack them up, so they can get under there to steal them. So by the time you do all that, and your heart's I'm sure your heart's thumping the whole time because you're scared to death. Blue lights are going to come on.
Right.
Or somebody with a gun inside their house.
Or the property owner's going to come out and take care of you. You do all that for a few $100, where you could go and work an honest job, and
you could actually be a mechanic and make more money and work on cars.
Yeah, be a diesel mechanic.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right.
You can make a couple $100,000 a year doing diesel mechanic work.
I want to angle this into a direction, and we didn't really, this is raw radio, okay? So I've just made like 2-3 notes over here on a piece of paper, and we just talking about some of the offenses that you're seeing. One of the things I want to bring up is gun theft. And what are we talking about? And here's why I'm bringing this up. And I work in an area where there are a lot of liberal-minded individuals, and they absolutely want gun locks. They want laws for gun locks.
Right.
Okay, and their argument is this, and I hear it, and so I'm starting to hear it more and more. And usually I can tell what's going to be on the news media more, but just by the people I'm around a lot of times and their talking points, because they all have the same talking points. And one of the things they say is on firearms, you have someone steal a firearm and then they use it for a crime. Well, as conservatives and Second Amendment guys, a lot of times our argument is, well, if you were to steal a car and use it for a crime, and we've seen people, it's terrible, but we've seen people drive vehicles through parades in the last few years. We've seen that. We have an inanimate object that's being used to commit a crime.
All right.
Their argument is this, and I'm hearing it a lot. Their argument is, yes, but a car was not intended with the manufacturer's purpose to inflict harm or death. Okay? So allowing that to fall into the hands of a criminal, okay, so we're talking about theft now.
All right.
My thing is from you, and I know you pretty well, but I want to hear it from a legal standpoint, from a prosecutor standpoint. Me personally, would increasing the penalty for gun theft, would this deter this crime, or would this cause more problems in your opinion? Because I'm going to say something, and somebody may just gasp for air when I say this, but using their logic of a firearm was created for one purpose, and that's to inflict bodily injury or death, then wouldn't stealing a firearm be akin to attempted murder?
Could be. Yeah, I mean, if you carry it out to the extreme.
Sure.
I mean, number one, our legislature has already increased the penalties for stealing firearms.
Okay.
We've already done that. We've already increased the penalties for felons in possession of firearms. So we already have, and I can't tell you because I'm the administrator now, and I'm not in the courtroom every day and prosecuting these cases. But I know our state's already looked at doing that, and I think it was a part of when they passed the constitutional carry.
Okay. Oh, okay. Quote. It was part of that.
It was part of that. We're gonna abolish the requirement for you to have a permit to carry, but we're going to make it harder on you if you steal a firearm or if you're felon in possession of a firearm. And I don't have a problem with that at all. I think there's a good argument that increasing the penalties for stealing firearms may be a deterrent to gun thefts, but it's hard to determine that. That would be the justification. Well, if the penalty's stiffer, people will be less likely to commit it. But I don't. In practice, it's hard for me to see it having any kind of effect because, especially if the end goal is to reduce gun violence, then increasing the penalty for stealing guns is not going to me, it's going to have a minuscule of any effect. Because very few people in my case, in my experience, very few people steal guns, then go out and use that gun to commit a crime.
They sell it.
Yeah, they sell it. They steal it to sell it to somebody, and that buyer or somebody 3 buyers down the road is the thug who goes out and kills somebody.
Okay.
So punishing the guy that's breaking into your car to steal your gun more, I don't think is going to, in a practical effect, is not going to affect gun violence. I don't think that's going to reduce the number of people using guns in crimes. And we've already made in Tennessee several years, probably close to 10 years ago now, we already made it if you use a gun or possess a firearm during the commission of certain dangerous crimes, dangerous felonies, and selling drugs is one of those.
Okay.
We've already made it mandatory prison time. So to me, that has more of an effect, more of a practical effect of reducing gun violence than trying to increase the punishment for somebody who steals a gun.
Okay.
Now, again, I'm all...
well, I guess the only reason I'm even approaching it is because I am 100% against gun locks. Okay, I don't believe you should punish the law-abiding citizen for owning a firearm. Right. I mean, we don't have specialized locks for anything. So to imply that we would have to have gun locks, and when I see the state edging their way toward we're going to give free gun locks away, we're going to drop the taxes on gun safes, I see this as a process. And we've had conversations before how They play the long game, and we've got to be playing the long game here. So I'm just wondering how we can address this, and I'm not sure how to address it. There's not really a good answer for me because we're dealing with a criminal, we're dealing with theft, and so you got to think ahead of that. But to me, Brent, if you put a gun lock on a gun, and, we've all seen these gun locks that are in new firearms. Most of them look typically like a braided metal cord of some sort with a cable in it and a lock on it, simple lock, nothing special. I just don't see somebody breaking in a house and then having that lock on the trigger and they're going, well, dang, I'm not going to pick that up. It's got a gun lock on it. I just don't see that stopping.
When I see the gun lock, to me, it's kind of ridiculous because you could take a good pair of pliers and cut it.
Absolutely.
Well, you're talking about increasing the penalty for stealing guns as a deterrent. Requiring gun locks is, to me, thinking that requiring gun locks would reduce gun violence in any way is ridiculous.
Well, but we're talking with liberals here.
Well, yeah, but
it's not supposed to make sense.
You're telling me the guy that's already busted the side window out of your $60,000 pickup truck and has entered is in the middle of the parking lot with his legs sticking out your window, you think that he's going to open your console and see a gun lock on the gun and decide not to take it?
Right.
That's ridiculous.
He's going to take it.
They're going to take it. And if they'll bust the window out of your truck, I guarantee you they'll cut a lock off a gun.
Absolutely.
The only practical effect, in my mind, gun locks have is the possible prevention of accidental shootings.
Okay.
Right.
With small kids.
Yeah.
To me, if you have children, a gun lock would be its primary use, or for it to be its primary effective use, would be if you in a situation where you don't have a gun safe, or you can't store your gun safely, and you have small kids that are too young for you to train in gun safety.
Right.
Then in that situation, it may prevent some accidental shootings of children or by kids. But if they're arguing that it in any way would reduce gun violence or the theft of guns, to me that's ridiculous.
And I'm totally okay if an individual wants to lock up a gun. Look, that's your right. You know what needs to be done in your home. I just don't want the government telling me I have to have a gun lock on.
Yeah,
that's what I don't
think
want.
about this. Yeah. The minute they break the window of your truck, they've already committed a felony.
Okay.
And when if they're going to mandate gun locks, surely they're not going to. At most, that's going to be, a misdemeanor or something like that.
Right.
Or destruction of a gun lock. They may, say, well, we'll make it a crime to tamper with a gun lock. Well, to me, somebody that's already committed a felony to get to your gun, and an even more serious felony if they've broken in your home to get the gun, they're not going to be deterred by some other misdemeanor or maybe low-grade felony.
I don't think that's not their game plan. To me, their game plan is to make the gun owner responsible.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're after.
In civil court as well. They want civil lawsuits against gun owners. That is the angle. They know to disarm is to go for the pocketbook. They know how to get things done.
Yeah,
and it's effective.
And it's the same. It has the same effect of any other gun law they want to pass. Is it only affects law-abiding citizens? It's not going to affect criminal activity in the least. It's only going to affect the law-abiding citizens.
That's right.
It's going to make things harder for me and you. It's like you said, if they want to make somebody steals my Glock out of my house, and then 5 years later somebody's killed with it, and they want to try to come back and hold me liable.
That's what they're looking at.
And they're doing that or trying it with the gun manufacturers too. But to me, that's if we ever get to that point. We've already slid so far down the.
Yes. Lawrence and I were saying it's a slippery slope. And they want to really and truly they want to force you onto that slope. Mm-hmm. They're okay with just getting you onto the slope. And how do we keep us up where we need to be and in the center of trying to keep our freedoms?
We have to keep on our legislators, number one, and number two is and I hope everybody's hearing what Brent's saying, is to have a good constitutional district attorney that is behind your freedoms.
That's right. We appreciate you, Brent.
Yeah,
We really
I mean,
do.
that to me, that to me, I mean, I'm hearing everything you're saying, and you can see here, I got goosebumps on my arms here, because we have a district attorney that thinks first about our constitutional rights.
Yep.
And I don't see that in a lot of district attorneys.
No. Yeah, you're not working an angle to work against our freedoms, and that is, I mean, that is so great that we live here in this county and in the state of Tennessee, and we also have a good district attorney, good sheriff. We're thankful for him as well,
Yes.
John Myers. So, that's great. I want to throw in a little plug here. Our next meeting for the Lawrence County Republican Party is going to be on November 28th at 6 p.m. at the Lawrence County Courthouse. And so that's, again, going to be on November 28th, 6 p.m. at the Lawrence County Courthouse. We are going to have that town hall style, and I know we're kind of coming in right after the holiday there, but here's the reason why we're doing it right now. We have learned, and Lawrence County has learned and been informed, the entire county, that they are going to raise our solid waste fees in the county. That is actually, let me back up. They have actually already raised the solid waste fees in the county. And
To the county, not to the citizens.
To the county, not to the citizens. But they're going to raise those rates again, it looks like in January. So we are going to see this fee go up. I don't know if it's going to double. I don't know, but it is going to go up. And so we're talking about solid waste and the removal of the county's trash to Mississippi. So these things are going to be a topic. We're going to be talking about it there. We're going to give citizens a chance to ask questions. Going to give some chance for our district attorney, not district attorney.
I may be there complaining.
You may be there, yeah. complain there. We'll have David Morgan there. You can just let him have it.
That's right.
But yeah, we will have our county executive there, and I think several of our county commissioners are going to be there. I think some of the officials from the dump are going to also be present. Folks are really wanting to get out there and get the public, actually inform the public is a good thing.
Well,
because
I would.
bad information trickles out, and it gets rumor mill started.
It really does. And, I would really hope to see a lot of our county commissioners there, that are going to be there, the
Sure.
ones that, if they care about their constituents, they should be there at the meeting for two reasons. One is to get the information and hear what the people have to say, and also to take the information back to their people that were not able to make the meeting.
Absolutely. So this is going to happen on November 28th, 6 p.m., Lawrence County Courthouse. Solid waste fees will be our topic. It will be town hall style. So, trying to get good information out there and get good feedback. The media is so slanted nowadays. If we can ever give our elected officials a chance to actually get one-on-one with the constituents, I think that is huge. So we're trying to create that venue to make it possible. So we hope folks will show up and come out and join us for that. And you don't have to be a Republican. You don't have to be in the Republican Party. This is town hall style. All people are welcome. Democrat, independent, you're not even a registered voter. You live here. Come get informed.
Come get informed.
That's all it
Absolutely.
is. Okay, no political slant on that whatsoever.
So I want to continue beating the dead horse here.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, I got a big stick and I just want to use it. So one, as a lot of you guys may be aware of, we've had the pistol brace ban is lifted, which I thought was really nice. Did you have anything come up with the pistol brace while this was going on for the last 6 months?
No, I haven't had any cases or gotten any calls about it to
Good.
my knowledge. No.
I like that because, to me, I think our federal government is in trouble trying to take away our guns because of the Bruin case. Can you kind of elaborate on really what Bruin did for our gun rights?
Well, of course, Bruin, I believe, is the New York case.
Yes, sir.
And again, I'm not. You didn't give me a warning. When
No,
we were talking about
no,
this, so I didn't read up on the opinion, but it further established that the Second Amendment means what it says, that that you can't require citizens to jump through more hoops to bear a firearm. Because the Second Amendment, says it's constitutional, it's your right. That case and some other recent ones have reinforced, I believe, our Second Amendment rights to carry firearms. And we were talking about gun locks earlier. To me, requiring gun locks would be another way, another way to track who owns firearms.
That's right.
Well,
So, and that's what I'm more paranoid about that than I am a lot of other things. I don't think the government should. I don't think it's any of their business what's in my gun safe.
well, the ATF has already have already come out, and they've been talking too much here lately.
They have a database.
They have a database, and they say we have a database, but yet we don't have a registry.
Well,
I mean, is that the definition of is taking Bill Clinton's?
well, I think what they're talking about is they have a database of every gun that's sold to a licensed dealer.
Right.
And in law enforcement, we use that sometimes.
Right.
When there's a crime committed and a gun left at the scene and it's traceable, it's a common practice of law enforcement is to run a trace on that serial number. Now, the only thing that we've ever been able to obtain, and I don't know what all. I can't say this is the limit of what the ATF has.
Right.
But in my experience, they can tell if we find a gun that has a serial number on it, and we run it through the ATF. They can tell us who purchased that firearm. And where they purchased it from a licensed dealer.
Right.
Because when you go into that gun shop, you fill out that paperwork.
That's right.
To buy that gun. That's all that is kept in a database.
Sure.
Now, currently, you can walk out of there and, I can go home and call you up and sell that gun to you. And there's not going to be any paperwork.
Right.
But it's not uncommon for law enforcement. For years have been using the ATF database to track firearms and either firearms that are found or stolen firearms, and sometimes it's come in handy where we found a gun at a crime scene, and it's rarely there. The person who originally bought the gun is rarely a suspect in the case. But they may actually be able to, sometimes they can tell you who they sold it to or when it was stolen or something like that, and that might can lead you closer to who.
Well, see, and I think it's great that the state can have that information, but for the federal government to have that information.
That's where we're getting it from.
Right, I know.
The ATF, they're the ones that we call if we want to know. If we're trying to, quote, trace a firearm, that's what we do is we contact ATF, we give them that serial number, and then they can give us basically the original purchase paperwork from when it was first legally purchased.
But see, again, this is great information for our people, and I knew this, but when you have the ATF saying, "Oh, we don't have a registry, we don't know who bought a gun or who has the gun or anything like that," that's just not true.
They know its point of origin.
They do,
and so it gives them a mechanism to do to some degree of tracking on that firearm. It's not that it's just out there and it came out of the black hole and we don't know where it came from. So, appreciate that information.
Yeah, that's good information. And I tell you what else, I hate going down this road, but with the ATF
Lawrence is
and
not pro Second Amendment at all.
with the ATF and the Biden,
Florida man.
Hey, listen, let me tell you where
Orlando.
I am. 200 million people in the 20th century alone was killed because of gun registration.
Sure.
So, and people, you need to wake up. If you think that can't happen now or even in this country, you're sadly mistaken.
Registration leads to confiscation.
I bet you the Jews in 1938 and 39 didn't think it could happen either. I bet you the people in Russia and China didn't think it could happen. But here's another thing. I also hate someone that do as I say, not as I do. And
well, you're going to have a lot of problem with government.
I do. Because we have the ATF and the Biden administration. They've been caught running guns into Mexico again. Right. I don't know if anybody's been following that story, but just like we had the Obama administration, it's kind of funny how things keep happening.
Democrats think if you carry it into Mexico, it can't come back across. So.
Well, no, I mean, hey, listen.
I'm being facetious.
I know they're being facetious, but, you know, that's what helps these guys with the drugs and everything that are coming over into our country that we're having to prosecute with.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I just wanted to point that couple of things out.
Well, and the hypocrisy.
Thank you, Brent. That was the word I was looking
coming
for.
from Washington is always amazing. I mean,
It is.
They care about everybody else's border except ours, and they want to take our guns, but they want to sell the Ukrainians all they could buy. And to my knowledge, they're not requiring any age limit on who's carrying what we're shipping over there.
That's a good point.
What about leaving all those guns over in
Afghanistan?
Afghanistan that has made its way to the Gaza Strip.
Hamas.
Yeah,
I mean, I see Hamas and Hezbollah. I've never seen it up until here lately. You know, typically when you see these things happening, that have been going on, they all had AK-47s. Now I'm seeing M4s, which is the quote-unquote AR-15, you know, Armalite rifle, not assault rifles, named after the inventor of this gun, which was Armalite.
Right.
Well, can I shift gears?
Yeah.
And I would like to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I know it is to Lawrence as well. Look, we're seeing so much news coverage about the books that are in schools and in public libraries. And now it's being tossed back and forth. Okay, how are we as conservatives, how are we going to come back and combat against this? It seems like just a flood of books that are being pushed, and I mean literally pushed into school systems now.
Yeah.
And I say most of these books that we have a problem with are pornographic in nature, and if they're not, then they at least push the limits of what we would consider to be mainstream and be acceptable for children. So I know we have laws out there on this. Yeah. And I actually had a conversation with someone, and I said, hey, look, Brent Cooper's coming on the radio, and I'm going to get it straight from Brent Cooper, and I'm going straight for the jugular here, okay? And so I'm not going to, spoiler alert, here it comes. I want to know at what point, as district attorney, can you prosecute for breaking this law?
Fortunately,
I know you got a lot to unpack there.
I have dealt with this some already in my experience, mostly in Murray County.
Okay,
but it hasn't been school libraries though. It's been the public library.
We were there for some of that.
We were there, yep.
And of course, my job is to. When someone reports something to me, my job is to take that report and look at what the law in Tennessee is and decide, is this a crime or not? Of course, we have a legal definition in the code of obscenity and pornography and things like that. Those definitions are not black and white.
No, they're not.
They're not crystal clear by any stretch of the imagination, and they usually involve some words that even I have to look up.
Really?
When I read them. But
definition of is
kind of yeah. That's pretty close. But I'll just tell you the way I've dealt with it. Whenever a particular book has been brought to my attention, of course, I've had people that reported. I've had them send me copies of the excerpts from the book, and then on 2 cases, I personally went down to the public library and checked the book out, or got a copy from them, and took it back to my office and reviewed it myself. I don't want to take. I've learned a lot of lessons over 23 years of being a prosecutor, and one is you can't always run out and charge somebody based on what somebody's telling you.
Sure.
Even what somebody's sending you in a letter or a copy of something. So I go out and I actually get the actual book because I want to be able to.
You're doing your own detective work.
Well, I'm going to look like a fool when I charge these people with a crime and they go, that's not in this book.
Right.
You know? And
right.
So anyway.
That's wise. That's just being wise.
Yes.
Well, it's just experience. But so most of the books I've looked at were certainly books. The best way I can describe them are they definitely had content that I found disturbing, that I did not want my children to have access to, and content that I thought was absolutely contrary to everything I want my kids to believe about sexuality, relationships, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. Graphic in nature.
Right. But most of those books kind of go right up to the line, but they haven't crossed the line as far as becoming what I can call obscene material.
Right.
And hold somebody criminally responsible for. And I'll tell you another handy thing to do. Whenever you come across one of these books that you think you find offensive, first thing you need to do is to go online, look up the Tennessee State Online Library.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be shocked how many of those are in the online library, which is maintained by the state of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That happened with one of the first books I looked into. Was somebody told me about this online library, or I saw a comment about it, and I went and looked, and the book was on there.
Okay.
And so I called the person back and said, well, you really need to be talking to the governor's office or the Secretary of State's office, because the Secretary of State is actually who governs public libraries. Because this book it's going to be hard for me to say, Murray County, you can't have this book in your library.
When it's in the Tennessee library.
In the Tennessee State Government's online library.
Wow.
See, to me, this is the way I look at it. If I have a book in question and I go and read it out loud to either a school board or to kids, and it's offensive, then why do the kids have access to it? And I've seen numerous occasions, online where you'll have parents that are reading these books, and the words that are in these books, and it's said, even...
They're too offensive for a school board meeting.
That's correct. Right. So why is that being allowed in the schools or even in the public library for children to have access to? Yeah. I can understand the adults. Okay, if you want to read that, then you read that. We still live in a free country. We still have the First Amendment. But the kids, a kid, that should not be available.
Are you aware of a list of books that are at least questionable? Okay, there's lists going around of books in public schools in this area. Are you aware of that list? Have you been made aware of that list?
Not a list that's relevant to just local schools. Now, I've seen lists online of these are the most banned books or the most reported books in school libraries, but I haven't seen anything specific to Lawrence County or Murray County as far as a list. And again, the complaints I've gotten have been about the public library, not coming from school libraries.
Okay.
Now, I did...
But school would fall under immediate jurisdiction for you as well.
The law would apply to a school library the same as it would a public library. And what the law says is that it's a crime to either furnish obscene or pornographic material to a minor or make it available to them. Okay? And now I did have, like I said, the vast majority of the books I dealt with, they came up close to the line. I was offended by them. I didn't want my kid reading it, but I couldn't say they crossed that line to where I could prosecute somebody that checked this book out to a kid. And one of the things I look at, and it's another thing that just comes with doing this for a long time, is you have to reverse or switch hats. And so, okay, well, if I say this book is offensive because I just don't like what it's talking about, then the other side can say, well, I think any book describing Christianity, that offends me.
Sure.
So when the definition is really subjective, then if I say, well, we're going to draw the line on this book on obscenity, well, then somebody from the other side is going to say, well, if that's this book is just as offensive to me. So
it ties more into being under the definition of pornographic instead of the topic.
Well, and there was a book that...
well, wouldn't that be one and the same? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but, it's kind of funny because I actually read this today, and it was a study done by the RAND Corporation, and the RAND Corporation did this study back in, 2005, and they said with children there was no difference in correlation between watching and reading porn for a child to engage in those activities.
Sure.
That there was no difference in correlation. So if the words on the paper
Yeah.
are just as offensive as what's, because a child cannot go into a convenience store that sells Hustler magazines and buy that magazine, can
Right,
they?
and we don't have those magazines in the school libraries as well.
That's correct.
Right.
But if
Well, I'll just tell you, we had there was one book that crossed the line, and it was in our public library, and it's called. The title of it was "All Boys Aren't Blue," and if you Google it, you'll see that it is I think the number one or number two most banned book in libraries. And unlike some of the other books, like there was another book called "This Book Is Gay."
Yeah, I've heard of that
And,
one.
That was one of the first ones that was brought to my attention. And again, I looked through that book, and I don't want my kid reading that. I don't
Sure.
want my kid. And there weren't any pictures in that book, but there were lots of crude drawings of adult humans without clothes on and things like that. But it was crude enough that you certainly couldn't call it pornographic, and no actual photos or anything like that. So, in this other book, All Boys Aren't Blue, 0 pictures, 0 drawings, 0.
I think I've heard of this book and what they explain.
But there's a chapter in that book where the author is describing when he lost his virginity,
Right.
to an older man. And
pedophilia.
The author's a male too, and you read that, and it's, clearly pornographic. It's very graphic, it's very detailed, it's very intimate about what happened, and I didn't want to base my decision based solely on my opinion. So
Right.
I have in Columbia, I have seven attorneys working for me in that office, and they all come from different backgrounds, and some of them are more liberal than others. Now they all, of course, have to follow my philosophy on criminal prosecutions, but
Sure.
but I don't tell them what they can do in their off time. But I passed that book around and let several of the other attorneys in my office read it, and it was 100% unanimous that what those words described was pornography. So the way I handled that was I simply wrote a letter to the library board and copied it to the public library, and I didn't threaten anybody, and I didn't tell them what to do with the book, and I said that in the letter. I'm not threatening you, and I'm not telling you where to put the book, but I am telling you that I believe this book contains obscene material, and if it's made available to anyone under the age of 18, then it could be a violation of this statute, which is a Class A misdemeanor, yada yada yada. And to my knowledge, it's not on the shelves, or I've never gotten any indication that they put it. Nobody's ever come back to me.
And we're talking again about the Murray County Public Library.
This is public library.
And this book was in the children's section.
It was in the young adult section. You won't see, and that's another thing. The definition of a young adult, according to the public library,
13 to 18.
is 13 to 18.
Right.
Okay.
Which under criminal law is still a minor.
That's
Well,
right.
my daughter's just turned 13 this past weekend. And,
Mine's 13 too.
and there's no way I want them reading it.
No.
We have a question
Okay.
that came in from Gary
Okay.
out of Columbia.
Okay.
And I think this question that came in, Gary probably, Gary.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Gary's probably looking at it for him because he might be looking to try to either stay out of trouble or how not to get in trouble. So,
Look, Gary, if you don't want to get in trouble, do it right in front of the DA. He
That's
already
right.
told you, Gary.
That's right. That's right, Gary. So
I can't prosecute you. Somebody else will have to.
that's right. No. So anyway, his question is, and he even says, this is just a question here, but he wanted to know when a crime is committed, what is the process for it to reach you in order for you to decide to prosecute?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the crimes we prosecute are already they're brought by law enforcement, and the decision whether or not to prosecute those cases is not made by me,
Right.
Except in some circumstances. But your average crime, shoplifting, possession of drugs, DUI, domestic assault, all those crimes, the officer will go take out a warrant themselves. They can arrest you, take you to jail. A warrant is issued. Now, the check to whether or not, I guess, a crime is committed is every warrant has to be sworn to before a magistrate. And a magistrate's supposed to be a neutral and detached person who will read the warrant, and decide if it makes out probable cause for a crime. So now, where I'm going to basically screen a crime, and you have to understand, I think statistically, my office prosecuted in the general sessions courts of the 4 counties of my district, we prosecuted somewhere between, I want to say, around 70,000 crimes last year.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
With how many attorneys?
well, I have total of 14.
Now is that
Across 4
including
counties.
like speeding tickets and everything, or is this actual crime?
Most of your traffic crimes go through city courts.
Right.
Only a speeder would call speeding
Right.
not a crime. I just want to point that out for all of our listeners.
Yeah, I've never been
Or
pulled over.
seatbelts.
Or seatbelts.
Yeah. But no, those are actual. For us to prosecute, it has to carry a threat of actual jail time.
Okay.
Okay.
So
70,000?
yeah, now that can mean Bob. Bob can have 5 charges.
Okay.
When police go out and arrest Bob for domestic assault, by the time he checks into jail, he may have 4 charges.
Sure.
Okay.
Domestic assault, public drunk, possession of a weapon, vandalism for, destroying.
But we're
the
still
victim's
talking
home.
tens of thousands of
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking lots of.
I never
crimes.
would have guessed that.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there's no way my office could screen all those
Sure.
cases before somebody makes an arrest.
Mm-hmm.
So when my office screens a crime or decides whether or not somebody's going to be charged, it's either a very unusual crime, something we don't see very often, and the officer is just kind of uncertain about, is this a charge or not, or what should I charge this person with, or it's a very serious crime, like a child sex crime, or a homicide, or something complex like an embezzlement or something like that. Those cases are usually come through us before we say, okay, charge them or not.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Another question that that I wanted to ask you is, where are you at on mandatory sentences? And this has been coming up a lot for people I've been talking to, on store owners that are selling the THC vapes to underage minors.
I wouldn't be opposed to mandatory jail time on that.
Well, here's the
think-
way I understand this, though, and let me set this up for our
Okay.
listeners, because I didn't understand how this worked, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But the way I understand the laws, if someone sells THC to a minor, they cannot be charged unless it is a actual undercover event. They've sold it to a I don't know, certified undercover agent. Am I wrong on this?
Yeah, that's not true.
Okay.
I mean, we can.
I have been told that.
Yeah, there's nothing in the law that says it has to be an actual informant that goes
Okay.
in the boat.
It can be something that can
Now-
be seen.
Now, typically, most of the times, the cases we hear about, you're not going to be able to prosecute because you just have a parent calling and saying, I caught my kid with a vape,
Right.
and he confessed that he bought it from ABC Mart.
Right.
And I hope there's not one name here in town, but you can't take that and go arrest somebody at ABC Mart. So most of the cases you see that are prosecuted do involve us actually sending in, or law enforcement sending in an informant to make that buy, because those are the most prosecutable, the best cases to prosecute, because we're going to have video or audio or both on the informant. And the informant's going to be coached to to try to elicit certain statements from the guy selling it. Now, I do want to make a distinction. In my mind, there's a distinction between THC vapes and these other
Delta
things,
8.
these Delta 8 CBD. I think the store owners that are knowingly selling THC, which is basically marijuana in liquid form that you can vape. And
I'm glad you made that distinction.
And it's very potent marijuana,
yeah, it is.
too. I think, the reason I said I don't have a problem with them serving jail time is because, in my mind, it's a serious thing they're doing. It's more, to me, it's not, well, the THC we're dealing with nowadays is not your pot of
That's
the 80s,
correct.
70s, and 60s.
It's 30 times.
It's 30 times.
Many times more.
Yes.
So not only should the person that sells it to the minor get in trouble, but even the store owner that's stocking it should be in trouble as well.
If they, in fact, the owner to me is
More guilty.
Is more guilty. I mean, the employee there may just be trying to pay his electric bill and doing what he's told to do by the boss.
Or he may not even know what it is.
He may not, but the owner that's
they
actually
know.
ordering these products and bringing them in and selling them, and we have a case like that in Giles County where we actually padlocked the store. We filed a nuisance action against the market and had it padlocked.
Good.
And the owners, I don't know if we've actually charged him yet, or we're still. You understand? We have to get a lot of stuff tested by the lab. So I don't think we've actually charged yet because we're still processing through evidence of the different types of substances we seized and things like that. But in that case, and you can't go out and padlock every store that sells to a minor.
The first time,
to file a nuisance action, we have to be able to show that there's basically a history of this business being used for illegal activity.
I want to say something to the parents that are out there. I'm going to throw this tip out for parents. Maybe they don't know, and I know we're winding down, but we're on this topic, so I got to touch on it, or I'll go home and be mad at myself if I don't. But your kids are out there going to school. They're on the school buses, and they get a lot of peer pressure. And I've been talking with folks that are actually in this area. This is their area of expertise. And if you actually will tell your kid, I'm going to drug test you every month, you might think, well, my kid doesn't do anything, and they never would. Here's what you do. You give your child an out.
Yeah. That's right.
You say, hey, I'm going to drug test. So then when your friends ask you, say, hey, you want to try this? They actually say, I can't because I get drug test every month from my parents.
Isn't that's a great
So
idea?
it helps your kid eliminate the peer pressure.
That's right.
And they don't have to, and you're doing it and stick to it and really do it. Give them a drug test every month or every 2 months.
That's great, Brandon.
It doesn't cost much and it works. And also on the fact that we're talking about these vapes and this thing, that has actually skyrocketed in Lawrence County school systems.
It has.
I mean, it is plaguing our school systems here. And they're working hard everywhere. All 4 counties. So parents, if you're out there, look, drug test your kids.
Yeah.
Know what they're doing and give them a way out. I just want to put that plug
in.
in.
You can buy the drug tests, I think, at Walmart.
Yeah, you can buy them over the counter.
Cheap. They're cheap. All right, so we got like a minute and a half left. One more question. What is your opinion on the 3 strikes you're out on dangerous drugs?
I'm good with it. I mean, we've actually had a version of that on the books for a long time, the 3 strikes law, and it's not used often enough. What
I agree with that.
And I think, and in fact, we've actually slipped the past few years. How long has Lee been in office? But we've actually
Too long. Long enough. Too long.
We've actually slid the other way on drug crimes. We've had legislation passed that's reduced the penalty.
Wow.
For like one of the handiest tools I had was the Drug Free School Zone Act, where if you sell drugs within 1,000 feet of a school, park, daycare, etc., you're looking at mandatory prison time.
Good.
Well, a few years ago, apparently, our governor and legislature decided that was being too that was being abused, and my district was I was right up there with Nashville and Memphis and those areas with the number of people I had in prison for those offenses.
Wow.
Bill Lee needs to go back to doing air
So
conditioners.
yeah, a
again.
lot of those guys that I worked hard to send away on 100% prison time sentences are now out.
Wow. Our next meeting, November 28th, 6 p.m., Lawrence County Courthouse. Our guest tonight's been Brent Cooper, District Attorney for the 22nd Judicial District. Brent, you're a good friend, and we appreciate you.
Thanks for
Great
having
district
me.
attorney. I tell you, we are so blessed to have you. And hey, we're over. We're actually over. God bless everybody in this county, and God bless our state, and God bless the United States.
Amen.